Can you reuse newsletters for blog posts? Today, we're going to talk about it.
Welcome to the Up in My Business podcast with me, Lex Lancaster, where you'll get an inside look at all things tech, business, and my life as a physical therapist turned digital operations expert. You'll hear all about my lessons as a business owner, the ins and outs of tech for your business, and more. From SEO, websites, and email marketing to automations, launches, and copywriting, I've got you. I'm so excited you're here. Let's dive in.
Hello, welcome to another episode of Up in My Business. I am recording today talking about a question that I received in my question box about blog posts and newsletters. Newsletters, we're talking about, emails that go out to your folks. If you're on my newsletter list, it's like my Monday Minute. So the question was, and this person is familiar with SEO and she took SEO school way back when. So she knows the value of SEO optimized blogs, etc. So what I want to talk about is what she had asked is, can I reuse newsletters that I sent out to my newsletter subscriber list as blog posts, even though they're not SEO optimized? Now, I've talked about this, before, and I like addressing it again because as I've done this for a longer period of time and I've seen everything, play out over the course, and I've seen client results. And I'm also just well aware of branding. I assume that this answer will be very similar to what I've said before because, the answer is yes and. But yeah, I just feel like, as I have more experience and as I'm watching the results flood in with blogging and what that means and how clinicians operate and how online business owners operate, what actually matters. So my answer to this question is, so can you reuse newsletters for your blog posts, even though they're not SEO optimized? I wanted to find the SEO optimized part. In my brain, what this is referring to is my golden keyword approach and finding out what are people Googling, what's the ratio, is it worth writing about? Okay, so that's what I think SEO optimized is. And because when we have that keyword, we can then optimize for that keyword. I will tell you that you can definitely reuse your newsletters for blog posts if you would like to do that. It will provide, especially if it's personalized context, and also just if you're talking to someone, right? So if you're just providing value in your newsletters and you want to use it as a blog post, absolutely. You can definitely use that. That's one of those things where I will tell people personality is also important. Why you started your clinic is also important. Why you don't take insurance is also important. So even if it's not, SEO optimized in a sense where it's a golden keyword, you can definitely use it on your blog. Now, I'm going to tell you that I don't think that you should just chuck it up there, right? I think it needs to be reformatted. It needs to be scannable. You need to have headings. So it still requires some editing. Unless you genuinely want to turn your blog into a letters from your name, which you could do. You could definitely do that. Or you could have two separate blogs. One is an informational blog that you do a lot of, answer questions to, if you will. And then another blog is letters from whatever. Mine could be letters from Lex. And then I could just literally take my newsletter and put it there. So it kind of depends on what you want to do. But yes, you can definitely take your newsletter and use it as a blog post if you're providing value and if it's helping people trust you more. Trust content is huge. Now, SEO optimized, I'm also just going to say, there are pieces of this that you can't just chuck in the trash. Your URL, the link to the blog needs to make sense. So if the blog post is X, Y, and Z thing, it's the title of your newsletter, the URL should be the title of the newsletter, right? So it should be the title. The title should make sense. And what I had just said, you need to break up your context still, and your text in the the newsletter, into bullet points, numbered list, headlines. You should have different sections. It should be scannable. It should not be just like a copy paste situation, but you can definitely reuse the content. Now, the other thing too that you can just adjust expectations around is if you're not actively putting effort into, coming up in search by using golden keywords, by providing Google with data that you're trustworthy through the use of the blogging protocol that I recommend, which I have a whole course on that, and I can link that in the show notes. If you don't do that, you also just have to accept that some of these blogs will not be indexed by Google because they don't matter to Google. And they'll just sit on your website and they'll help the consumer once they get to your website, but they're not going to help you get found on Google, right? So if you can just, take that and say, okay, I'm accepting that. I'm doing this for trust building for people who make it to my website, or as a reference that I can send people to on my website, then just go use it. Yes, 100%. But if this is going to be what you're considering to be your SEO strategy, I'm going to tell you that I would not do that. I would not say that that is an SEO strategy. It's not a strategy. You're simply just pasting content you're already writing in your newsletter and putting it on your site. Not bad. You're still creating content and putting it on your website, but I also would not credit yourself to having an SEO strategy by doing that. You're just taking content that already exists and putting it on your site, which is fine. It's not going to help you. It's just that is also not going to be 9 times out of 10, not going to be content that is going to improve your SEO and your search rankings for a specific thing. Because you're not choosing titles that matter to Google. You're just writing whatever comes to your mind and whatever you send out to your newsletter list, which again is just not based in strategy. It's just based in what do I want to talk about, which is perfectly fine, again, because both things have their benefit. And I also will say there's something to be said about the fact that blogging can't just be this task that you do that is, for lack of better terms, strategy based. You also have to find things that you enjoy doing. So if you enjoy doing it, you're obviously going to keep doing it. So maybe you write some strategy posts and then you write some posts that are more or less like these newsletter posts or things that you randomly think about that day, etc. Right? So having a mix of them is ideal. And if you're like, I don't have time for SEO strategy, I don't care, then just take your newsletter, put it on your blog post. You'll probably need to expand on it because newsletters typically are not 800 words ever. So I would say newsletters typically err on the lower side. So if your newsletters are 800 words, then you're good. If they're not, then you need to beef them up too. Or I would tell you that you could beef them up a little bit more. But again, if they're just being used as trust builders for people who find your website, not things that will help Google put you in front of the right people, which again, I would assume that that's the case. Google's likely not going to index these blogs. That's okay, right? That's a-okay that is the case. And it's a-okay that you're doing that, because I think something is better than nothing for sure. It's just don't assume that this is an SEO strategy, because that's obviously not the case. It's more or less just and I shouldn't even say SEO strategy, SEO blogging strategy, because it is part of SEO strategy when it comes to client trust and people who find your website and trust for that. But I don't want you to feel like this is going to be a major move to improving your ranks on Google. All right. I think that answers the question. And if there are follow-up questions, please let me know. Would love to hear from you if you have questions on that. And if this is all you can do right now and publishing your newsletter to your blog and your website is all that you can make happen for right this moment, then yeah, go do it. Something is going to be better than nothing, and then invest in the SEO strategy down the road. All right, friends, short one today, but hopefully super informational for you. And I am so grateful that you are listening. And again, let me know if you have questions. And if you want to learn the full strategy of blogging, I do have a whole course on that, so you can take a peek on that. All right. Thank you so much for listening. I will catch you next time.